ways to make sure that we are able to contribute meaningfully to the provincial fiscus. And I think the fee increment came at an opportune time. Like I said, 8 years since the last one was conducted. Got a challenge with the fiscus within the province. The purse keeps decreasing and shrinking, and it's not going to increase anytime soon. We have to be intentional about interventions that we put forth to assist the province. It's not an ideal situation where we have liquor outlets or shebeens or tavern at every corner of our townships, To your point, it creates social harm. Every license has its own conditions.
An application
process where you have to lodge your application through our regional offices. We've got 5 of them in Germiston, Germiston, Joburg, West Rand, Sedibeng, and Tshwane.
In a province where every tail point tells a story of livelihood, a story of prosperity, regulation and social impact plays a crucial role. The Gauteng Liquor Board sits at the crossroads where public interests are always weighed against revenue generation and the drive to ensure that whatever these sin taxes are generating equally are underscored by the importance of addressing what they erode. My name is Barba. Welcome to Gauteng Live, the platform where we share, propagate everything about the visitor economy in the Golden Province of Gauteng. Why today's conversation matters? It really matters because it's at the heart of our everyday living, with social situation continuing to hamper livelihoods of our households, livelihoods of our businesses. Today, we're reflecting on the Gauteng Liquor Board, the recent increases in the liquor licensing fees, and the general state of the liquor industry in the Golden Province of Gauteng. To take these matters further, we're joined by the Chief Director at the Gauteng Liquor Board, dear sister, Crezelda Venter. Welcome to Gauteng Live.
Thank you so much.
Every day, your work includes managing, interfacing with the broader stakeholders in the space. So, usebenza kumajwali?
No, I work for the economy of the province. But yes, it's a very vibrant and interesting environment to be functioning within.
Yeah.
Ultimately, it assists the province from an economic point of view and, also creating the lifestyle that Gautengers, mostly enjoy. But obviously, we have to make sure it's in a responsible manner.
We are reflecting on the recent announced increases in the licensing fees, and this comes at a time where, I guess, communities, household pressures also are at its highest, with oil increases. As we know, when petrol goes up, everything else gets affected. Don't you think these increases comes at a time where even the stockists themselves, the manufacturers, the guys that are running their own businesses will be left with no choice but to actually pass through this to the consumers, to the buyers, and then continue to perpetuate the cycle of just general want?
Listen, it's a tricky one. We had to think very long and hard. I haven't been long within the space, but the last increment for liquor licensing fees in the province of Gauteng was 8 years ago.
Oh.
And
That's even before COVID.
before COVID.
Yeah.
And they were due to be increased, I think, just round about when COVID hit. But obviously, we needed to absorb those pressures as the province, and we halted on that particular process. It has been a very difficult journey for traders, we must admit, and I think the industry at large.
Yeah.
But looking at the economic landscape of the province, we've got a very shrinking fiscus. We have to find ways to make sure that we are able to contribute meaningfully to the provincial fiscus. And I think the fee increment came at an opportune time. Like I said, 8 years since the last one was conducted. So as a province, we would have also engaged extensively and benchmark across the different provinces as well, just to also understand the different pressures that would ultimately, give us reason enough. Trust me, we looked at everything. We ultimately did do a business case where we then utilized the consumer price index and obviously taking into consideration everything that's happening economically in the province and in the country. Like you're saying, there's also international impacts, like the fuel issues that we are currently experiencing, that would have then given resolve to where we find ourselves. The increment is 7% across all the various types of liquor licenses. Yeah, it's quite minimal in the bigger scheme of things, but substantiates enough also just to consider the different businesses that operate within the space. You've got your taverns as compared to a macro, for example, what's 7% for them. But those are engagements that we continue to have with the industry. Yes, we did receive a little bit of backlash. Obviously, we've got liquor associations within the province that would have also engaged with their members, and of course, what is okay with Crezelda is not okay for Barba.
Absolutely.
And unfortunately, we can never please anyone. But if we are going to regulate the space effectively, the regulator requires those funds as well to also enhance our enforcement compliance arm, just to also make sure that the service we provide is that we can afford, and make sure that whatever services we provide,
Sure.
Gauteng is a huge province, by the way. So we have to cover all corners.
If I were to ask, what is the value proposition, especially direct public benefit, out of increased fees in the broader conversation? Because this is between the traders and the regulator. As you weigh in options and what comes out of the business case, what will you say are some of the tangible benefits that are accrued to the public as a result of this, knowing that it's equally a double jeopardy situation?
Of course. I mean, like I'm saying, we always have to find a balance. But the value proposition is that it will result in a more effective and efficient regulator. From a Gauteng Liquor Board perspective, we obviously have had a couple of challenges over the years, and we have engaged with the industry also extensively in terms of our shortcomings and what it would require for us to resolve them. Obviously, like I mentioned, we've got a challenge with the fiscus within the province. The purse keeps decreasing and shrinking, and it's not gonna increase anytime soon. We have to be intentional about interventions that we put forth to assist the province. What it will assist with: increased, enhanced compliance enforcement. We have on our books legal outlets that are around 18,000. These are the ones that operate within the confines of the law. That to a large extent
To about 16.5 million people. That's not enough.
Exactly. Do the numbers.
I get.
And these are the legal ones that I'm talking about that would operate within the Gauteng Liquor Act, right? And we only have 19 inspectors currently, the Gauteng Liquor Board. You know Gauteng, you know how huge and how vast it is. We cannot afford to have, an inspector covering every corner of the province with that limited capacity. We do employ on, SAPS and law enforcement and other key stakeholders within the industry to assist. We have to come up with creative ways also just to assist the enforcement compliance leg of what we do as a regulator. Over and above that, we are looking at investing in systems that will make us more efficient and effective. And key to that would be the automation system that we would want to invest in. We have started significant work, and I think with that particular system, we'll be able to, respond to the community challenges. We'll be
Yeah.
able to enforce. We'll be able to respond to governance issues, improve on our efficiency through the turnaround times that will be much faster. It will also allow for a more transparent process, which would be a benefit to the communities. I think I grew up mo
Yeah.
ko lekeisheneng ke ngwana kwa Treasury,
Absolutely,
so you know hore at every other corner
Yeah.
you find an outlet,
Outlet,
whether
yeah.
registered or not,
Yeah.
do we know? Whether legal or not, do we know? So what the system would allow us to do is for community to have that interface, to know, okay, no, Barba's liquor store is licensed and we can find their
And
details.
here are the benefits of that licensing system.
Exactly.
Yourselves as the liquor board, how do you balance, especially with being viewed all the time, and especially as a regulator and a watchdog, the issue of public interest versus compliance, and ultimately authority, because you are the regulator. Therefore, if there is lawlessness, authority gets out of the window. So, and then it nakuwa hamapereko since rapereko a tlhokofala, that type of a situation. But how do you, in the everyday execution of your work, ensure that there is a delicate balance between compliance, between authority, and equally the public interest? And I'm raising this in the context of, we all know our South African history. We come from a situation where it was actually institutionalized to clamp down on community microbrewing that were led by Bomama Barona and the like, as a means. You with some combo tea, and it becomes part of the generating livelihood. So that's the culture we're coming from. Therefore, when every corner is a trading space, every house tries and sell, it's not just out of desperation. It's a culture that has been built in to drive entrepreneurship and provide for livelihoods. Therefore, how do you create that delicate balance?
You know what, it's a constant struggle, and I think you mentioned something that's quite important in terms of where we come from as a people and how did we get to the establishment of shebeens and taverns in our townships. There's a whole historical background to it, and we understood the reasons behind those. Of course, our mothers and fathers and our grandparents were not allowed to conduct business outside of where they stayed. So unfortunately, it also turned the fabric of what our
everyday community living
what our
remedies.
townships look like.
Absolutely.
And it's not an ideal situation where we have liquor outlets or shebeens or tavern at every corner of our townships. To your point, it creates social harm. We've got kids now that are in matric. How do they study? But luckily, there is ongoing work that is being done through intergovernmental relations and the legislation around making sure that the outlets that would have been licensed in those areas also abide by the laws. Municipals are responsible for bylaws enforcement, which also assist us, and it's part of the requirements when we do approve a license as a liquor board. So there would be certain approvals that we would require from the municipality for them to say to us, okay, we have looked at the application. They want to conduct business in this particular area. Is it a residential zone? Is it a business zone? And across the other, point of or in places of interest, there is a church, there is a school, so we need to balance all of those. So within our criteria and our qualification criteria, there's those disqualifications that we consider, that the board considers before they can approve a liquor license. So the 500 meters radius from points of interest, like from your schools,
Yeah.
we wouldn't ideally want to have any outlets that are, that close to schools. So it must be outside of that 500-meter radius space. Places like your churches.
Yeah.
But now because Gauteng is such a dynamic place, there is this continuous debate that we have. We've got churches that keep popping up,
Yeah.
So it's the story of who came first.
And also the venues that have been built. I mean, we were talking about with one of our guests, even the nature of the churches that have been built right now. They are convention centers in their own right. And now on a Wednesday, when I have hired this church and I'm hosting them, I'm at Ridgeville Awards, and there is a requirements for liquor and the like. How then do you balance? I guess those are some of the challenges that are there. But so you are saying the 500 meters, it's actually an approved process across the board.
It is in a residential zone.
Okay.
So we've got a keen interest in making sure that our outlets are not in close proximity to places of interest. I would have mentioned what those places of interest are. But again, it's that issue of did what came first, the chicken or the egg? So we are finding ourselves in those types of discussions right now. Over and above that, we are also engaging on a national level. They are also reviewing the bill, so we're trying to make inputs there, so that it also finds expression in the norms and standards as well. And also, we are finding a balance with the other provinces as well. We would have benchmark. Some provinces don't necessarily have that particular restriction, but we do as Gauteng. And then to go back to your social harm issue, we, as the liquor board, our mandate is to regulate the manufacturing,
Yeah.
the production, and the sale of liquor. A part of it is also making sure that over and above our our legislation in terms of issuing licenses, we are able to also have some control and input in terms of the behavior around the consumption of alcohol, and that speaks to trader behavior and the consumption behavior of our communities. So within our programs, we do have a awareness and educational element to the work that we do, where we would see different topical issues that would impact that particular industry. So we would have sessions that would focus on traders to say, don't sell to under 18 youth.
Yeah.
If you do, it's also so important that communities are also aware of that. You are able to lay a complaint, so that the board is able to ultimately, obviously through due process, consider either revoking revoking the license, or instituting a fine of some sort, because they would have contravened the Gauteng Liquor Act. So it's not only that. What we're also trying to call upon the communities to also be a part of the process, the compliance process itself. As you know, like I said, growing up Kulikation, you see, we are the ones that send our kids to go buy us alcohol.
You send them to go to Cosmo and all of that. So as a regulator and within the Department of Economic Development, therefore, in a typical government setup with this targets, this annual performance targets and the like. So how does success for you in implementing, your own plans, and especially around regulatory role and this specific challenge that we are dealing with, look like? So what becomes your impact measures, and when you reflect and say, yeah, this quarter we've done very well, what does that look like?
So across various elements. So like I said, let me start with the compliance element. I want to say about 2 years ago, our inspection targets were quite low.
Yeah.
Right? So at some point we had to look at the trends within the industry and what it's mutating into. Also looking at finding a balance between regulating the legal ones and also understanding the dynamics of the illegal operators within the industry. We can't turn a blind eye.
Yeah.
So what we have done, last financially, we increased our targets for inspections to 26,000. We are literally the only province in the country that goes above 5,000 inspections a year.
Yeah.
So that was a huge jump. Of course, it came with its own teething issues, but true to the nature of the work that we did and the efforts that we have from the colleagues we work with from the inspectorate, we managed to reach about 27,000 inspections for the previous financial year, being 2025-26 financial year, from a target of not more than 4,000 in the 24-25 financial year. So that would have been a successful story for us to tell. Of course, we couldn't have done that alone as well. We had partnerships through law enforcement. It's critical for areas that we are unable to enforce. They are able to enforce, inclusive of municipalities as well, so that they're able to enforce their bylaws as well. The industry as well would have also assisted with whatever resources they could come up with. We have a very exciting program that also assists with job creation for the youth. It's the Liquor Wardens program that we are in partnership with Heineken. So they were...
So it's like what, junior inspectors or meaning
Yes. So while they might not have the full
enforcement
powers,
rules and the like,
as the inspectors, they're able to escalate issues. And the core objective of that particular program is to improve behavioral patterns of the traders so that they're able to comply with the Gauteng Liquor Act. Where there's repeat offenders, those kind of cases then get escalated to the Gauteng Liquor Board for us to go back and enforce the law.
So to be able to enforce, regulate, and change behavior across the board, behavior of buyers, behavior of traders, behavior of communities generally, and equally behavior of our inspectors, because you can't shy away from the continued public distrust that exists, between authority and the public. There is equally the importance of restating over and over again, for example, the different types of licenses that are out there. So I get myself a container and I want to put it at an event to, trade. Others put a Vuravors roll thing there. Others put cooks, there's others sell coffee. And there is no really requirement to have a coffee trading license. To engage that. And do we treat alcohol differently? And therefore, it is just one example. And I guess there's an events license. But if we were to characterize the different licensing regime, what are they? And how do we disaggregate them? And how does this help the public? And how does this classification equally assist in implementing and ensuring a fairly regulated environment, but also protect the consumers, knowing that I will be able to have a recourse if something happens to me. I've drank fake alcohol from somebody that I don't know whether they are registered or not.
So, that is a very important question. And I think it also goes back to our ability to reach communities. And unfortunately, it's something that we can't do alone, right? And we would have called upon the industry as well, because, they're profiting from this industry. What is their contribution to the industry? From a Gauteng perspective, I think we are quite happy to then announce that we would have launched our Gauteng Liquor Strategic Forum.
Okay.
What that forum's intention is and the objective thereof is to call upon industry players. We would have then had highlighted the priorities of the province as they relate to harm reduction and what spaces we'd want the industry to play within to assist us in curbing, the harm that comes with this lovely liquid that we like to consume. They can't just profit from it. And it's important for me to also note that they do quite a bit. I think it's just that we don't know about it.
Yeah.
So our objective was to make sure that we are able to call them together and.
But they do. They send it out. But to what extent is it intended to demonstrate the work that they do, or it's just technical advertising?
Exactly.
So I put up this message that says liquor caused the specific harm, or
and you leave it there.
underage, and then it's brought to you by, and after that, there's 7 adverts of different alcohol brands.
Of course.
Yeah.
And you're quite correct. You're quite correct in your analysis of that. So what the forum wants to do is, again, align them to provincial priorities as they relate to harm reduction. So what that will see us doing through that forum is that we will then have a matrix in terms of how we monitor and evaluate impact of these programs that they're implementing on the ground. Noting the limited resources of government, the industry was actually, well receiving of the intention behind this particular forum. So we just launched it. We will be reporting on Q1 impact.
Okay.
So we've come up and formulated and we've agreed on a matrix and a measure of impact and not just numbers, because that's what we tend to, to do. But we are going over and above that. So it's quite important for us that we approach it in that manner. So yeah.
So if the classifications of the licenses, for the benefit of our viewers and listeners, and there might be those that just comes out of a masterclass session with the Gauteng Enterprise Propeller. They've been energized to go start entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
And oh, by the way, now I need to be regulated. Now I need a license, but they don't know what type of licenses do they need. Yeah.
So we've got 17 types of licenses that we license, and every license has its own conditions.
An application process.
An application process where you have to lodge your application through our regional offices. We've got 5 of them in Germiston, Germiston, Joburg, West Rand, Sedibeng, and Tshwane.
Okay.
Currently, because of our accommodation issues, Germiston, which is the Ekurhuleni region, and the Joburg region share a space currently. So you'll find both of those regional offices at the Germiston office. So we've got on consumption and off consumption as well. So on consumption, in its name, you are able to consume at the point where you would have bought your alcohol from. Off consumption is that the takeaway, basically. So trading hours also are related to the license type that you get approval for. We spoke about taverns, you've got restaurant license, you've got your accommodation licenses. So there's various types. You spoke about, those sporadic events that happen as and when there might be, an event of some sort.
Pop-ups,
Yes. So those are occasional permits. So those ones you have to apply at least 14 days before.
Okay.
Right? So again, they also have their own conditions. You can't now operate, forever on an occasional permit. It's literally in the names, just for one occasion, consecutively for 1 to 7 days, and not more than that. Because you've got, let's say, for example, like the GIS that we had, not the GIS, the D20 summit that we had. Exactly. So we cater for such as well. You've got your hotel licenses as well. So they've got their own conditions. We've got the ones that will operate from up until 12 o'clock, and then the ones that operate up until 2 a.m. in the morning. Again, a point of contention, obviously. Other provinces actually, their cut-off time in terms of operating hours and trading hours, much earlier than ours. Theirs is 12.
I guess it's an appreciation of the environment we find ourselves in.
100%.
So if I, for example, operates let's take that kiosk or whatever container, and I need to get into the space, so I'm going to an event. The event organizers themselves applies for the license for their event, and they also ask for traders and whatever to also come in there. Do I equally also apply, or I can leverage the event organizer's license, therefore my facility gets accommodated under the event license?
So when the event organizer applies, they will list the Barba's kiosk that would want to be part of that event, and we are able to cover the event in totality. So it doesn't have to be every kiosk at the event applying for that.
Online services, I guess, comes into the party, and you'll see where I'm going with this, because previously you will have had this structured differently, because alcohol consumption and the like will have been handled differently. With the advent of online booking services and delivery, one, I guess, it's also consumer and user centric. Therefore, there are some regulatory issues. So but my 14-year-old can order pizza and a 6-pack, from one specific outlet. Are this some of the challenges, and how do you deal with, a process like that, but equally not allowing the regulation and the enforcement to stifle business? And at the height of COVID, will have been a classical example. With outlets closed, we saw people doing all manner of funny things, but one of the booming business during that time was alcohol delivery. But there's also issues of convenience, where and nowadays the weather patterns, people are specific in indoor spaces. So if I am able to order bread, I'm able to order milk, what processes do we institute that I should be able to order my wine and my 6-pack, but not at the disadvantage of the system and the regulatory and the enforcement process?
Yeah. So I like that you went to where all of this emanates from, and where we saw the uptake during COVID. So luckily for the Gauteng province, I think we are the only province that would have had something that was able to respond to that within our legislation. So we have within our Gauteng Liquor Act what we call a discretionary license.
Okay.
That the board is allowed and is able to issue. So we operated within those conditions of that discretionary license that the board was able to issue. There was an uptake, obviously, as you rightfully stated. It comes with its own challenges, because it's not something that exists in legislation from a national perspective. And it's something that needed to start there from an e-commerce perspective. It's a gap within legislation at the moment. But from a Gauteng perspective, at least we were able to let it find expression through that particular license. It also has its own conditions as well. So depending on the motivation that you provide, the board is then able to stipulate the conditions of your particular license. Obviously, they would still want to do pre-inspections to see where this alcohol will be stored and make sure that it's literally of consumption, and you are able to, your systems must be in place, obviously, to make sure that it's on an e-commerce platform, people are able to, and also just to check what your your systems include from a compliance perspective to say, I'm 17, can I still buy, from your system? Obviously, we have to curb against underage drinking and the sale of alcohol thereof. So from a national perspective, it's not something that's legislated as yet. Like I said, they are reviewing their bill. Provinces have had the opportunity to make inputs, and I think that is a bone of contention across the various provinces. Just yesterday, actually, we met with all the other provinces, and what we are trying to do is put our heads together and make sure that legislation is more or less the same. Across the different provinces. Ultimately, because we are responding to the national legislation as well, but understanding the dynamics of each province.
And I guess consumption patterns.
Exactly.
Because so alcohol consumption is not an illegal process.
No, alcohol is not illegal.
But sales of alcohol to underage kids is illegal, and all of those. So, like I was saying, so the system. So I'm on my app and I'm ordering pizza. And there is no age restriction from ordering pizza, but the very same outlet sells alcohol. Therefore, it's in their interest that they push a variety of catalog and products within their establishments. Therefore, they're not going to institute a specific regulatory process for this, item against this specific. Therefore, does the forum you referred to equally make provision for inclusion of such players? I mean, if you take the guys at Uber, as a holding company that have Uber Eats, that have the last mile delivery process and the like, or maybe through the departmental last mile delivery program. Therefore, that becomes a body that traditionally will have not included these types of role players, because from there they are put into a car or into a motorbike, and then it's transmitted. Therefore, you get into my residential, they can't get in because they also have to have that identity. So there are some processes that could be activated to ensure check and balances. Your reflection on it?
Yeah, I mean, from a national perspective, they regulate the macro manufacturing and macro distribution. You find most of these entities you refer to would be in the macro space, and that's why I'm saying there's a gap in legislation from a national perspective, because then it's supposed to then trickle down to provinces, and it's not there at the moment from an e-commerce perspective. We have had challenges with your big players like your Take a Lot. You mentioned Uber. At least from a Gauteng perspective, we have been able to meet them halfway. Obviously, making sure that we also find lines and, for inspection thereof and compliance thereof within the confines of our act. Here's a spanner in the works. You have a distribution center of one of these major retailers situated in Gauteng, right? We give approval for that particular license because our act allows us to do that. They distribute to Mpumalanga, Cape Town, Free State. But these provinces don't have licenses that speak to what they do. So the beauty of the forum also is that we're trying to find solutions for such things.
Yeah.
To say, the minute it leaves the province of Gauteng,
Yeah.
Mpumalanga has every right to
Yeah.
also want to regulate
Yeah.
that space and say, okay, because you are bringing alcohol into our province, and the volumes are this much. Obviously, they'll create their own legislation within their provinces to say this is also something that we can regulate.
Yeah.
Looking at revenue collection, looking at harm reduction, and the movement of goods across the different provinces. So that forum creates a great opportunity for us to, as an industry, speak with one voice and close these gaps that exist, because that is a major one.
Let's jump into illicit trade. I mean, we have covered a lot of it, but specifically enforcements around and fake alcohol as an example. So I was talking to my colleagues the other day, and I was saying the CEO of a popular cognac brand came to South Africa and says, when we were looking at our dashboard, these numbers are just out of the window. We are happy, we are making business like no other markets, but these volumes are not even commensurate with what we have produced. So one day it's brand reputation issues and the like, but ultimately there's serious harm. We'll have kind of South Africans, sometimes we humor and social commentary on every matter, even serious and highly impactful stuff. So we'll have ventured into some sort of fake alcohol manufacturing during COVID and kind of unaware institutionalize the process. And later on, that rise leads to the rise in backyard manufacturing, bottling. I've seen raids from law enforcement and bottles of popular brands being found to be fake. What becomes the role of the board in instances like this, but also this platform that you have created, but equally communities that, and what becomes their recourse? Do you say you have bought fake alcohol from your own accord, therefore you must deal with the consequences of babalas and the consequences of your own bad health, harm, and everything? What role does the board plays in, and what role does all the multi-role players that are found in the space, including manufacturers themselves, in one cabin this, ensuring that this, because ultimately trickle down to economic impact with what we are supposed to be deriving out of jobs, out of the formal sectors, are eroded by illegal and illicit work that happens, across the board.
Of course. First of all, illicit and counterfeit, two different things.
Yeah.
Right. Unfortunately, what they both do is they lead to losses in revenue
Destruction.
across the board.
Yeah.
Right. There is health impact, dire health impacts, leading to death. We might, like you're saying, we've got a culture of just euphemizing and minimizing, key issues that we really need to have,
Conversations around.
deep conversations around. So that's one. Our role as a regulator, obviously, if you are doing anything outside of the prescripts of the Gauteng Liquor Act, the board can revoke your license.
Okay.
Right? So if you are doing what you're not supposed to be doing, in essence, in the confines of the Act, in the confines of any other related legislation and law, as the board, where it relates to the space that we are able to regulate, we can revoke your license. We can suspend your license. We can give you fines. I mean, we've had so many issues with unlicensed outlets trading in illicit and counterfeit goods. Unfortunately, that takes a multidisciplinary effort
Yeah.
because we can't regulate unlicensed.
So you can't evoke the license, it doesn't exist.
Because it doesn't exist, you know.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, when there is an issue that came up, like the Beggersdale situation, like the Sawsville situation, everybody's roped in.
Yeah.
Everybody has a role to play, including our communities. Now, if I've consumed alcohol that is counterfeit,
Yeah.
unfortunately, here's the dynamics of it. Illicit and counterfeit alcohol is cheaper.
Yeah.
Right? So as a consumer, I don't want to spend too much.
And then you live a cheap life and cheap health.
Yes. At the detriment of your own health.
Yeah.
Right? We've got you are able to report those. We have, like you're saying, done joint raids with law enforcement where we would have confiscated a number of volumes of illicit and counterfeit alcohol. But just to make sure that communities are aware that, you know, when we speak about illicit alcohol is ones that would have reached our shores in, back routes, evading tax, issues that come with bringing goods in our borders. The selling of that particular liquor, that liquor is illegal as well. Counterfeit speaks to when I am doing my backyard production of alcohol and I use a reputable brand. I use their bottles and I can also alter the contents of that bottle. So what I'm trying to say is that not all counterfeit liquor is illicit.
Yeah.
But all of these you find, or illicit, also all counterfeit becomes illicit. So there's that distinction.
But there's instances where, and I guess it differs. So and by scale.
Yes.
Also there's macro ones. So there's a Barba who buys 6 units and use the 6 units to double them up.
Doesn't
So
matter.
and there's one who purely manufacture a lot of yeast and whatever, and 100% alcohol to make it stronger, and the like. So this broader categorization still speaks to the same ills
It does.
that this caused, but the role of communities and the role of the distributors, the traders themselves in dealing with this, and liquor boards interface with themselves in one's trying to keep this. And like I've said, you are dealing, and that is why this refers to the category of, sin products, sin tax, collection, and the like. It leads to substantial economic benefits. But if it's not done in a regulated manner, an acceptable manner, the harm outweighs, the benefits. Therefore, what becomes the role of the board in working together with all the role players? One, to propagate the message that, fake alcohol effects are 1, 2, 3. What might seem cheap will actually cheapen your life, reduce your lifespan, and many other stuff. But most importantly, here are the direct socio-economic, challenges. So the person who drives the truck that delivers, the person who does the bottling, the person who does the packing are part of the everyday community workforce that benefits out of the industry. If you remove this formal process, here are the consequences.
So what we do with the industry through the forum that we launched, we've got a pillar that speaks specifically to illicit, counterfeit, and illegal trading of alcohol. So we don't necessarily have the expertise as the regulator within the space. And like I said, it will take a number of stakeholders for us to, find solutions to this ever evolving challenge that we are facing. Let me tell you that the evolution every day is a new thing. So we've got Drinks Federation of South Africa. That is one of the partners that is responsible for that particular pillar. So we're also looking at research, just also to understand the dynamics and the flow of it into our shores and how it circulates. Obviously, it will come with intelligence that law enforcement is then able to utilize to crack down all these multifaceted operations that exist within the province, and obviously has a negative impact on our communities and our economy as well. That illicit and counterfeit business is worth billions. Worth billions.
I mean, you see it with tobacco, you see it across, so it's
and we saw the collapse there. So we are working together with the industry, which is quite encouraging. What we have done from an awareness and education perspective for the liquor traders as well, we did run a workshop, a 3-day workshop, where we partnered with Salba as well. We invited Consumer Affairs, we invited Department of Agriculture, we invited SARS, the colleagues that work at the Border Control, Department of Home Affairs. So we included all the stakeholders that are involved within the value process. So just to create awareness and show them what counterfeit and illicit
how
alcohol
it interfaces
and how it interface. So what we also did is we trained our inspectors through the support of the industry as well, how to identify this counterfeit alcohol. Through our awareness program, we are intensifying again with the partnership of the industry, speaking to communities, speaking to school kids, speaking to NGOs, speaking to traders in particular as well. Just putting that message across that this is what you need to look out for. If you do see it, you are able to report at particular platforms. Obviously, we need to meet the communities where they are. The platforms we use become very critical. And we need to understand our audience as well. We've got those ones that are still not tech savvy. So we do a hybrid of both in terms of how we deliver our awareness and messages as well. So we are going on a drive to intensify the digital platforms in terms of making sure the messages goes through and reaches every corner of the province. So we are intensifying this aspect. In so doing, also we would have launched our newsletter as a Gauteng Liquor Board. We've never had something like that, so it will give you a recap of our quarterly work and also tell you what's upcoming in terms of the awareness and education programs that we'll be hosting, where, what time, what's the focus, so that even the reach through our stakeholders, we're able to tell your members as associations to say, please attend to those particular sessions. This is what the information that will be shared. It's critical, So yeah, it's a work in progress though.
How will you characterize the state of the Gauteng liquor industry? Are we on a high? Are we declining? Or are we just stagnating? And what will that mean? Because again, it's a very multifaceted space. And equally, if you were to also touch on in reflecting on that, what are some of the trends you are seeing, as the board, and how are you preparing yourself or setting yourselves up to respond to those trends?
So it's a very resilient industry, for one, noting the knock it took during COVID. we're seeing numbers that seem to speak to the numbers pre-COVID.
Yeah.
So that is encouraging. Having said that, it is a growing industry, but a negative trend that we're seeing is the increase in the illegal outlets
Yeah.
that keep popping up at every corner. And even the ones that look very nice and posh, you would think they're illegal,
Yeah.
but no. And it's not only in the townships now.
So, but how do they then buy their stock?
Yeah.
So don't you require license to buy
You
stock?
do. You do. So we engage broadly with the industry
Yeah.
as well, and we are quite fortunate with the industry and manufacturers and retailers that would have even approached us to say, please verify before they sell
Yeah.
any stock to any outlet, because obviously we, through our investigations, would find out where did you buy your stock, where did you get it. Obviously, the ones that we do find ultimately will never want to divulge where they got their stock. But again, like I said, it takes a concerted effort from all the stakeholders that are involved. Obviously, because that would obviously lead to other repercussions as well. But it's a tricky one. Having said that, also, the other trends that we are seeing is the incorrect applications that we receive in terms of I operate a tavern, but I want a restaurant license.
Okay.
Mm,
But I'm still selling Mokodu there.
Yeah, and that's the difference.
Yeah.
You see, if I'm a tavern, I don't sell food.
Yeah.
If I'm a restaurant, I sell food as my primary business.
Yeah.
You can't say I'm a restaurant and then I only sell alcohol.
Yeah.
And you don't have a kitchen, you
That's why I mean,
uh.
you know the you need Letswainyana, so that you are always getting messages that don't drink on an empty stomach. So therefore, there is that balance because you are gonna end up saying no. You didn't also say you are selling water, and you are also being encouraged to drink enough water when you are drinking alcohol. So how do you balance such messaging?
There's challenges to that, right? And I think again it goes back to education in terms of the types of licenses that we are able to issue
Yeah.
and approve, and the conditions of those licenses and the requirements of those licenses. I mean, we are quite particular. I think we have received a lot of negative backlash in terms of how long our processes take.
Yeah.
But you would appreciate the criteria in terms of what are the requirements. It can be easy. We are talking about like people, people's lives here.
Yeah.
If I approve your license and to find out you are selling, counterfeit
Yeah.
alcohol and your food is not up to par, municipalities need to give you business consent.
Yes. So it starts there.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you have to deal with the municipalities first and get all approvals, regardless of whether they're 19 or 20. When you come to us, you have to come with those pre-approvals. So we will assess your application based on the satisfaction of your compliance to the bylaws. Yes, it might become a bit stringent. We would obviously want to improve on the ease of doing business. We are not trying to stifle,
But Chris, when and I appreciate those trends. So I'm saying let's take our everyday consumption patterns and back again to our history. So my mother will say, "Hey, I'm not affording Baba's school fees, so I'm gonna sell Archer. I'm gonna sell Madopi peanuts. And I take the newspaper I roll, I sell out, and it's a survival thing. So there's never been a requirement. So I started with Madopi, then I have added Archer, or then I need something. So I go to Macro, I buy cold drinks, I sell. And then later on, after during school holidays, there's no business. Or there is some factory that opens close by. So on Fridays, they knock off at 12. So there's an opportunity to sell them alcohol. Therefore, that process that started with Archer is now a general deal,
Yeah.
just from the house. and it finds expression in a communal space in our communities. Therefore, that is why you had shops that were called general dealers.
Barba,
And I'm saying that finds expression in an online consumption booking platforms right now. I go to whatever Uber, I go to Take a Lot. I can order steel wool, sanitary pads, alcohol, and Archer at the go.
you know what our challenge is what I'm hearing you say, Baba, sounds like growth to me, right? And it's the responsibility of the government to create an enabling environment. And unfortunately, it's multifaceted.
Yeah.
We've got the likes of Gauteng Enterprise Propeller that are supposed to provide support, for your startup businesses, provide them with equipment and, stock and all of those elements that they're able to provide from a business development support perspective. And then you've got your financial components where they're able to say, okay, now you've grown to this
level.
medium size nyana. Now you are able to look at a location that would
It's
be
expansion now.
exactly. You see,
Yeah.
I'm hearing a good story.
Then
It's a good problem to have.
Yeah.
The challenge is now that our communities are growing. Obviously, our townships were never meant for business.
Yeah.
And we've got history behind that. They were never meant for business, and the zoning issues as well.
Yeah.
And again, it's on us to create that enabling environment. We would then obviously, from a liquor industry perspective, there's also programs that the industry has to assist in the expansion thereof, where they've got programs that they need to go through to a point where they're able to become distributors. Obviously, you can't do that from, from backyard Gunklum. So for me, it sounds like a good problem to have. It's just a matter of compliance and our communities understanding the requirements and the processes. Come to our offices, let us explain, let us assist you, let us connect you, let us facilitate for you where we are not able to provide directly to assist you.
As we move towards wrapping up, and briefly, so what does modernizing the work of the regulator, mean? And in real terms, you have characterized the challenge and the time it takes. For example, it's a role playing and overarching complaints from the traders, the consumers, and with the introduction of the digital interface to speed up the process. In summary, what does this mean? How does it look like? And what are the intended tangible benefits that our traders, consumers should be looking forward to and be excited about?
Yeah. Transparency, efficiency, predictability. It would be public facing. You'd be able to engage with us as the liquor board from a community perspective. Increased level of accountability. Live responses and updates in terms of the progress of your application. From a regulatory perspective, what that will allow us to do is to make sure that our turnaround times improve across end to end of the application process. It will allow us to interface and communicate with the communities and share information, as quickly as we receive it. It will also allow us to build that trust between us and the communities as well, where we would be able to geolocate every outlet through, GIS enabling tools that will tell us Baba's outlet is here, my outlet is there, they're too close to each other. It will speak to issues of density. We are having a lot of outlets within our communities. How do we curb against that? How does it assist us in making, data-driven decisions to say, in Alex, there's too many liquor outlets. We need to take hard decisions. For example, and I'm not saying that's the direction we're going, but you find overpopulated communities. How do we address the issue of the liquor board continually issuing out licenses? When does it get to a point where we say, no, we have to stop here? We have to look at
Maybe it's
alternatives.
disguised as a business license. And again, it starts selling marijuana. and then later on it sells alcohol.
100%.
And therefore it leads me to, the interface and working within the Department of Economic Development that among others includes, consumer office, it includes the gambling board, it includes us in tourism. Therefore, I set up a restaurant, I register with the Restaurant Association of South Africa, RASA. I go to Gauteng Tourism, I ask them how to turn this into a Sakumzi where tourists visit it. And then I must go to Crezelda again and do the liquor a license. And you find that also in hubs. So you take a Gold Reef City that has 2 hotels, that has an amusement park for kids, and there's also gambling there, and there's taverns inside, that establishment. So, what are some of the interface work that allows for ease of coordination amongst these public and stakeholder facing entities within the group that could easily create a one-stop shop that allows for improved ease of doing business, but also a regulated environment that is, customer centric, stakeholder centric, and efficient in responding to the requirements placed upon Gauteng to deliver way above the national average.
Baba, it's important that we digitize our systems and processes. I think we've got systems that don't speak to each other. And that is, even outside of the DED group. For our system, for example, as the Gauteng Liquor Board, our system will ultimately need to interface with SARS, Department of Home Affairs. If the South African Police Service would have a system that we are able to interface with, because one of the requirements is that you need police clearance to operate in liquor. Exactly. We need to know if you you had issues with the law, and we wouldn't want a person like that operating within the industry. So it's multifaceted. CIPC, for business registrations and so forth. So that same principle cuts across in terms of how the DED group needs to function. You mentioned very key entities, your tourism, your gambling. With gambling, we have started, enhancing the work that we do with them from an inspection perspective. Obviously, with tourism, we don't necessarily have inspectors, but we've got tour guides, and we've got the Amapanyas that are assisting from a safety perspective. We are able to create an ecosystem that allows us to move as one, ease of business, where there is and tourism is the center of it, where there is accommodation, hotels. Let's go back to Gold Reef City. You've got gambling facilities, you've got alcohol in one space, it's the tourist attraction
kids
space, So
the 500-meter thing, you get
it's the business. It's a business zoned area. But within those, I mean, there's demarcated areas for kids and all of those things. So it will take us to have a concerted effort to be intentional and reduce, and we have started some work in that, reduce the silo approach in how we respond to such issues from a compliance and regulatory perspective, specifically for liquor and gambling. Other provinces, just to note, actually have liquor and gambling together.
Combined,
And the work we do does interface with each other. So we are working together, notwithstanding the dynamics of the Gauteng province. But ultimately, we need to get to a point where the kind of training that they have, a liquor inspector can also enforce the issues of gambling and vice versa. And within the clusters that we operate within, also, responding to the capacity challenges that we do face as the province as well. So, if my one inspector...
And I guess those capacity, I mean, the inspectors, I'm quite excited about the junior Wardens process, and I see their training extended to tourism information.
Yes, of
I
course.
see their training extended, to a digital interface. But equally, the digitizing process that you spoke about. I mean, you have a Visit Gauteng mobile app that shows you where the outlets are, but at what point does loading the outlet in the app include some process of verification that allows the trader, to have already moved on step one. Therefore, when they get into the system just shows them that we have passed step one. As we wrap up, the issue about behavior and I said it across the board, whether it's consumer behavior, it's traders. So you get out of Gold Reefs, you get out of FNB Stadium. You had a fantastic Soweto derby, and um, you don't have law enforcement clamping down on illicit and illegal alcohol sale. They are outside, they blow you to check if you have been drinking out of the stadium. You know, as if you are coming from a funeral. So, and that becomes the first impression the visitor who came all the way from London to the Soweto Derby, that is there. And unfortunately, that doesn't get set up at a rugby or cricket match where even higher volumes get consumed. So therefore, and I'm not saying there shouldn't be a process to ensure that drunken driving is clamped on heavily
Yes.
and the like. But at what point does all these processes interface? Whether it's our drive to bring more events so that locals can benefit, tourists can have a good time, but law enforcement can do its work. It's the same, Chris, as so I got stopped by our colleagues
You're
at
drinking?
Metro. No. And they are looking for traffic fines.
Yes.
So I give them my license, and then from there, no, you have paid, go. So I says, okay, 17 cars, 70 officers, all one looking for traffic fines. So you don't even search the car to see if I'm not carrying. So it's that multifaceted approach where you are therefore using resources for maximum impact and be able to achieve. So they are going to set another roadblock that looks at the search as a KPA indicator, and there's another one for traffic fines. Your reflections on the interface.
Listen, collaborations are key. I think the sooner we understand the value change and the interconnectiveness of, I'm gonna call it the tourism economy.
Yeah.
Right? Because if they started with,
Yeah.
a tourist coming here and not necessarily having a different view of our cops and what they do and what they enforce. Let me give you an example. And tourism is doing this quite well, actually. What messages are we trying to promote? What are we trying to respond to? What are we trying to curb? Right? From an alcohol perspective, don't drink and drive.
Yeah.
But what are you able to then utilize if you're saying don't drink and drive? What's your alternative?
Absolutely.
We've got Ubers.
Yeah.
We've got the Gautrain.
Yeah.
All
manner of public transport.
Exactly. So if we are going to a Soweto Derby, don't drive.
Yeah.
Use public transport.
So that,
Gautrain is there, Prasa is there. They have also reinvented their offerings to make sure that they speak to the needs of the communities and the economy of the province and the kind of, leisure and entertainment industry we're trying to create in a safe manner.
Yeah.
How are we responding that as communities? Again, it speaks to the behavior. If we're going to do a lift club, the driver should not drink.
Yeah.
Know your limit.
Yeah.
They are going to blow you. That's guaranteed.
Yeah.
And we know they're very strategic about where they stand.
Yeah.
They know there's an event. They're going to stand right at the corner there. So you're going to find them in all directions. So let's be responsible. But again, collaboration, like I'm saying, it's very important that we speak as one.
Yeah.
Baba, in the tourism space, we are pushing for Gauteng's one story,
Yeah.
where we move as one, where we are able to, highlight
Pull everybody.
exactly,
Yeah.
put all our resources in one kitty and maximize what we get out of those resources
Lovely.
that we would have put together.
So you will probably, I don't know how long you said you've been in, but one of the dire effects of COVID has been the disseminating, decapitating of some of our, heritage. So the legendary SAB World of Beer is no more. And, to put a final nail in the coffin, and excuse the pun, that facility is now a funeral parlor. You know, the legendary museum where the industry decided to tell, I mean, the story of brewing in South Africa.
Yeah,
It's legendary,
it is.
you know. Um, and I'm juxtaposing this with, so in my donkey years of working in the Gauteng province, I was involved in the process that facilitated Heineken establishment in Sidibeng in the Heidelberg area in my previous work. So that investment facilitation and the saying that soil there is very palatable for a special hop that assists in generating that hop that is used to manufacture Heineken. So they have been running since in that specific space as one of your industry stakeholders.
Yes.
So is there an opportunity to then use them to reincarnate? We might not have it at the same level as the SAB World of Beer, but probably there could be something in the Sidibeng district that now speaks to the public, the tourists, everybody being able to see a beer being manufactured, and some form of an attraction or facility. But equally engage SAB in maybe through government-owned land and facility relocate that World of Beer Museum. And for me, I see that as partnership opportunities with the industry in your space to ensure that that interface that we're talking about between liquor, between tourism and regulation, finds expression. So you can look at the camera and yourselves as the regulator, commit your industry partners to such opportunities.
Listen, to the lovely industry players that are so welcoming when government knocks on their door, and understanding the dynamics of the profits that you make and your responsibility to the communities. Ultimately, we're trying to create jobs. And if our space in terms of regulation is efficient, it's effective, you are able to operate and, realize those profits. So this is a call to make sure that we look at opportunities where we are able to increase jobs. Our youth are in a very dire situation in terms of youth unemployment rates that keep increasing quarter on quarter, year on year. What are you doing as the industry? We have started work. Let's continue to escalate the efforts and the interventions at a massive scale. Gauteng is the place to be. Gauteng is welcoming investors and businesses to please put your resources in the province. Let's work together with government. Let's pull in our communities and let's see Gauteng grow and become the amazing golden province that it has always been.
I guess the message has hit home. Therefore, I'm personally looking forward to, such, it's not even a green field, it's a brown field because it comes from an existing facility. So I'm looking forward to, with some of the awareness budgets that these types of institutions have. Imagine if now you are even driving a whole range. So seeing a global beer being, packaged and produced in here adds into the destination story. And Chris, thank you very much for sharing the work that you do, but also right here at Gauteng Life, we appreciate the challenging environment you find yourself balancing act that you have to undertake, social harm versus economic impact, a regulatory process that doesn't equally stifle business, but also trying to create awareness and also change consumer and all other role players' behavior. It's a mammoth task, and we can only wish you all the best and all luck and you and the team in doing that work. But we're looking forward to the interface with the tourism body, the interface with gambling, the interface with the consumer office to ensure that the work we do is always consumer centric, stakeholder centric, public focused, but equally generate tangible socio-economic impact. Once again, thank you very much for heeding our invitation.
Thank you for having me.
That has been the conversation that reflected on, among others, the state of the liquor industry in the Golden Province of Gauteng. You've heard from Crezelda herself that the sector is very resilient and it depends on all the role players playing their part, everybody putting their will and ensuring that they play their part. It equally depends on communities being aware of the ills that comes with this sector, but equally the sector taking responsibility, not just addressing the ills, but also be preventative in nature in how that work gets executed. Don't forget to press that subscribe button, like, share, and tell everybody else about this specific platform. Give us feedback and allow us to also use this platform to interface with you. Follow us on our various social media platform. Download the Visit Gauteng mobile app, and you might be running businesses. Allow the Visit Gauteng app to be your platform where you share your business offerings, and we use that to tell the rest of the world about your business. There has been another fascinating episode of Gauteng Life. Until the next episode, Pula.